Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Flying Cat Marketing Interview Series. Today I have Sarah Franzen, who is the Director of Revenue Management and Analytics at Natural Retreats. We've been following each other online for a while. I'm just really happy to have you on the podcast today. How are you, Sarah?
I'm doing really well, thanks.
Great. So last time we spoke, you told me a little bit about your background, how you came from hotels into vacation rentals, and you got really into data and revenue management. Tell the listeners and watchers a little bit about your story, please.
Yeah, so I started in hospitality, I guess maybe like 10, 15 years ago. I don't even remember right now, but in hotels, in sales. Until I had gotten to hotel sales, I didn't even know that there was such thing as hotel sales. So that's where I started from. As you get to know me, you know that I am definitely, I can do sales, but I am not a natural, super extroverted salesperson. So that was hard. But along the way throughout the sales journey, I guess you would say, I discovered revenue management. That was something that in hotel sales, business development, you just learn and you attend these meetings and it's just a part of your life. And I really, really liked that. So after a few years on the sales side, I really decided that revenue management was more my jam. So I looked for opportunities in that, and I was very fortunate that the same company I was working in sales for was also looking for a revenue manager. And so I was able to kind of make that transition quite easily. But yeah, so that's kind of how I started in the revenue management side in hotels. Certainly really thankful for the sales experience that I had, learning kind of the hotel industry from that side, and very thankful that I was able to be introduced to revenue management from there. And then obviously from hotels, went to vacation rentals. I was pretty naive going from hotels to vacation rentals, thinking that there was going to be more similarities than there actually are, even though there's a lot of real core similarities. But so definitely got woken up when I moved to vacation rentals. But that's kind of the quick and dirty journey.
So other than the systems, the way that revenue management works, you had also mentioned that getting into vacation rentals, you would think that you have all the tools that you need in order to actually manage revenue and look at the data and get the reports that you need. But it turns out that wasn't the case at the time.
No, I made the false assumption that would be the case. I just assumed that if there was revenue management in vacation rentals, that there would be revenue management tools in vacation rentals. That was definitely not the case when I got here about 6.5 years ago. Apologies to anybody who actually was in the industry 6.5 years ago and had tools out there that I just didn't know about. I'm not trying to minimize you at all. I just didn't know. But yeah, so I got to my company, Natural Retreats. I've been here for the entire time that I've been in vacation rentals. I got here 6.5 years ago and came in on my first day and was kind of, getting the whole lay of the land type deal, and never really was introduced to reporting or anything like that. And after a few days, I was like, where is this stuff? And that's when I realized that there wasn't. And it wasn't, and I always try to frame this in this way, which is that it's not, my company's fault that was that way. It was where the industry was. And I was really, in hindsight, when I look back, it impresses me even more now that my company hired me in the first place, because, aside from knowing that revenue management was a thing, there wasn't really a lot of knowledge behind, okay, so what does that mean for us? And, you know, for better or for worse, and I actually think for better in my case, I got to figure out what that was. And I'm still figuring it out. I mean, I definitely don't have a lot of the big answers. I mean, I'm trying to figure them out as we go, but that's been something that I've really appreciated about this is both my company, you know, in that they're letting me figure it out. But also in the industry, that the industry is realizing this is important. We maybe don't really have the kind of understanding that maybe hotels or airlines have, but that the industry's figuring it out. So that's really cool to be a part of.
So what is exactly revenue management in vacation rentals? I know that we spoke about this before. You're saying, well, it's a revenue generating department, like sales, probably like rev ops, marketing. In a way, they're all revenue generating departments. But what does revenue management mean for vacation rentals, and does it mean something different for each vacation rental company?
I think on a high level, it doesn't mean anything different from company to company. I think that on the high level, it's still, you know, the old school textbook, you know, definition of selling, you know, the right room, or in this case, a unit at the right price, the right time, on the right channel to the right person. That part is still true. Because you want to do all those things. It's just that you have one perishable unit as opposed to like a box of perishable units. You know, that's kind of the main difference. So there's a lot of the Tetris stuff that you do in hotels that you know, can't do on an individual home level with a vacation rental. I mean, you certainly do need to look at your portfolio on that level, right? You know, you need to be able to analyze and determine how your business is running. And that is something that you would look at as like, like the box that is a hotel, you know, your portfolio is your box. So you still have to look at it that way. But your owner doesn't care if, you know, you've sold 6 other homes over here, if his home hasn't sold. So, you know, the thought and the perspective that goes into, you know, your behaviors, the levers that you flip, those things are different. So yeah, there is a lot that's the same conceptually. But then, you know, I think, you know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, with you, you know, there's a lot that's different, and it's not even necessarily the concept so much as the actions and the behavior, or at least, you know, what drives that behavior, you know, how you think about those things.
So when you got to natural retreats, you told me that you had a light bulb moment when you realized that what you needed wasn't there and you had to build it from scratch. Can you tell me about what it's like to do that when you come from a revenue management background? And I guess you're not coming from a developer background or building
Right.
tools, or like, wait, how do I build this?
Yeah. So massive shout out to my development team, because I am not a developer. I am the furthest thing from a developer. In fact, you know, a couple of my colleagues and I will joke, like, you know, when it comes to things that we need, we'll be like, can't you just like push a button or something and make that happen? You know, this really this position that is completely turned off from what a real actual developer does. That, you know, I'm not that person. So the light bulb moment you mentioned was the moment when I realized that, oh crap, I've got nothing. I can find out like where we ended up last year, like what happened last year, but that was it. Like I had nothing. And you know, the thing I always talk about, you know, in terms of the thing that I thought was the most lacking initially was my PACE report. I didn't have a PACE report. Everybody, you know, revenue managers live and die by a PACE report. And I didn't have that. And it was kind of like, you know, that like a binky or a blanket or something like for a kid, you know, that you clutch onto. And I didn't have that. It was just like gone, ripped away. And so that was really hard. And I realized at that point, like, okay, well, I can either quit, because, and that in some ways would have been the easiest way out, because it was borderline ridiculous that like you just didn't have any tools, right? Or I could figure it out. And Natural Retreats is a company that is unique in that we have our own developers. So, it's not like a third party, whatever. We have Natural Retreats employees who that's what they do. They code and they develop. And so, it took a while to get to the point where, it was like, hey, I should go to them and say, this is what I need. Like I said that, from the beginning, but nobody really knew what that was either. So the way I had to go about it, which is what I would imagine anybody in my position would have had to do, was you had to kind of start this education campaign. When people, when I first started, I was kind of sitting in my little proverbial, actual, literal corner, both. And I would just, I had my headphones in and I was like, just, and nobody knew what I was doing. And it took a long time for someone to actually ask. And we, there was kind of some reorganization and I got a new boss and it was him. And he asked, he was like, I don't mean to sound, dense or anything, but what do you do? And it was the first time, excuse me, anybody's had really asked me that. It was like, here, you put the rates in. That's what they kind of thought that a revenue manager was, somebody who entered rates into the system. And I was like, well, that's kind of admin and happy to do it, not above that at all. But there's more. But nobody bothered to ask. So I just was kind of doing it. I was having my own little revenue calls with our GMs on the ground, but nobody bothered to be like, who's she on the phone with? And so, when someone started asking, and I started explaining, I kind of had the first person kind of in my corner with me, who was like, that sounds really smart. Like, we should probably do more of that. Like, we should give you some more resource. And that was really the beginning of revenue management here at this company, which was once you kind of got some momentum, and people understood what you were doing. It's not difficult for any person who with half a brain to go, that sounds reasonable and actually pretty smart. Maybe we should do that. So I was very thankful that happened. And then from there, that's when I started getting my reports. I started getting more time with my developers. They eventually built out a RMS system for us. And the great thing is that, I didn't have to build anything. I just was able to tell them, hey, this is what I need, and walk them through conceptually what we're doing, what we want to accomplish. And because they're brilliant people, they were able to take that and go, okay, we get that. What do you think of this? And we were able to go back and forth through some various iterations of all the things and get to where we are now. And we're still going back and forth. We're still finding things that need improvement or things that we want changed. So it's been a process. It's been a road, but it's certainly been very fulfilling, rewarding, and being able to do it very fortunately, on my terms. We have our own PMS system. So, we're able to, the RMS system talks very well with the PMS system, because they were built for us. And when we want something changed, we ask for change. I mean, it doesn't happen immediately, obviously. There are other departments and people who have requests as well, but we're very fortunate in that.
Yeah, and you are, because a lot of property management companies don't have a team of developers to create.
That's very true.
This kind of thing for them. So fast forward 6.5 years later, today, we have the Price Labs, the Wheelhouse, the Rented. How are those? The way that I see it, it seems very interesting to obviously have your proprietary, your proprietary RMS, because you have a certain way of operating. Every PM company operates in their own way. What's your view on all this tech coming out in revenue data management? I know we had touched upon it before, and you had some opinions that I'd love to talk about.
Yeah. So our RMS system, has a lot of really amazing things. It has a lot of things that, I would like to see improved. Automation is one. And, I have for years, I've been talking with Price Labs and Beyond and all of these companies, Wheelhouse, and I've maybe not in depth with them, but I've always maintained contact with them. One, I think what they're doing for our industry is amazing. I would say, when I first learned about kind of automated dynamic pricing software solutions, things like that, it was probably in 2017. It was the first year I went to Verma. I think it was 2017. And I remember being on the show floor and looking at these things and going, wow, people are doing that, like in vacation rentals. And at the time I wasn't, I was like, I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm not sure. Fast forward 4 years later to now. And these products are pretty sophisticated. They're pretty impressive. Are they perfect? No. But then again, a lot of what you get out of it is what you put in it, like a lot of things. So, none of these companies would tell you, yeah, get our product and then you're good. You don't have to do any more revenue management. I mean, they'll all tell you have to be very actively involved in managing it. So in that sense, I'm really super impressed. And I just recently had demos on several of these products because, I would like to see where they are right now. I mean, obviously, we have our own proprietary systems, but we're still competing against these products, right? And it might make sense for us to adopt some of this technology for ourselves. I'm thankful to have my own developers, but at the same time, like if their, resource can be used better in other places and we can adopt some of these third-party options, well, then maybe that makes the most sense. So I'm really, really keen on keeping up with these companies because I think they've just gotten exponentially better over the years. The one thing that that I've always, and it's not, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but the one thing that I've always thought was really interesting about these products is that, it's a product that's available for our industry. Anybody can adopt it. They connect with every major PMS system. The API is very flexible in that way. And so the opportunity is there for smaller PMs, larger PMs, but it's all the same product. So, I think it was in our last discussion, I had said, it's interesting to me because, Hilton has its own product and Marriott has its own product and Hyatt has its own product. Now, I don't know the inner workings of all of these, like maybe Hyatt, the developers are actually developing for Hilton. I don't really know, but there is like, they have their product and they develop their product for their use. And you come to our side, same thing with the airlines, come to our side, the dark side, and we're all picking from the same tool bag. And I don't think that that's bad necessarily, but I do think that it's notable, there are a lot of reasons why that is the case, I think. But we talk about how our industry is, less commoditized. I mean, there's definitely portions of it that are very commoditized, but that, a home is less commoditized than a hotel, a big box of rooms. But yet the tools we're using are commoditized tools. And again, that's not a negative or, statement about the tool itself. It just is. And the tools will tell you, but you can customize these with your own rules, with your own things. And that's absolutely true. But it's just interesting to me, just I think from a high level to think about it that way, that, I can sit here and use Wheelhouse or Price Labs or Rented Now or Beyond or any of these tools that are out there. And then my competitor can use the exact same tool. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that. It's just interesting. Like I would never be like sitting at a Hilton product going, I really like Marriott's Marcia and I want to use that. So I'm going to go to them and be like, hey, can I use your tool? I'm like, no, you need to go pound sand. That's not happening. And there are other obvious limitations too, but it's one of those things that I think of as, at the very least, mildly entertaining in my own brain.
I find it entertaining too, and increasingly challenging these days. Well, for property managers, from what I understand, it's one of the biggest headaches to try to understand how to build the right tech stack. Also from a marketing perspective, I'm doing marketing for a lot of the tech in this space, and how to actually stand out, how to make people know that you exist in a way that's particular for their needs when you're also trying to appease to all of the needs.
Yeah.
How
that is I don't know. I mean, I'm glad I'm not on your side.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that is a challenge. Yeah, it's got to be something that, it's got to have its unique selling feature, right? But yet you've got to make sure that it's going to be wanted by everybody, and they all have to do that. And I guess you could, same thing with the PMS system. That's not any different.
Yeah.
You've got all these PMS systems, and they all have unique things about them. And they're all, trying to get everybody to come to theirs. Which maybe that's just capitalism in a nutshell. I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of products like that. So, like cheese is that way, I guess, right? But
So.
but it's interesting to me though that there are some things that are that have historically been branded, as this is very much Hilton, this is very much Marriott. People who work in the industry know that Hilton, uses, well, when I was, on queue, rates and inventory, a web-based kind of thing. And then, Marriott uses Marsha, or, I don't know what they're using now. I've been out of it long enough that I don't actually know. So people who are actually in hotels are like, that's not what we use anymore. Okay, fine. I don't know. But it's obvious, as somebody in the industry, you're like, okay, that's what they use. That's what they use. And there's not really a crossover. Do they do the same thing? Yeah, they do. But they're very much proprietary for that brand. Here, the brand is just, it's not really a thing when it comes to a lot of the tech that we see. The brand is the tech.
I feel like the brand is like one of the most important things because of that reason, because they all do the same thing. You can't really compete on features.
Well, it's almost like the brand for the tech is, the tech piece has their own branding, and they've got to come up with their own unique thing. The branding for a PM is more of like, what does your stack look like? So I might use this one, and I might use this one, and then I might have a proprietary one. And so our brand is rolled up in, this is our unique, this is how we do business, and none of the competitors of my competitors out there are using the same combination of things, which does make it unique. So I don't know, it's definitely kind of this thing that I think about a lot when it comes to the uniqueness of a PM in the space and the uniqueness of, some of the third party things in the space. And it's just a little flipped.
Is that something that owners ask you about a lot? What is your tech stack?
No, I don't speak to owners specifically, so I can't say that, personally, but I know that there are a lot of owners who are curious about what we use. And so I've put together something for our owners. So the folks who actually do speak with our owners have a resource to show them, what do we use? Why do we use it? Why do we not use certain things? Why might we use certain things in the future, but we don't use them now? Because those are all those questions that I know that come to me, secondhand, thirdhand. So I feel like, obviously people who have vacation homes are generally, I wouldn't say that, all the time with 100% certainty, but generally are pretty smart with their assets and their money, and they want to make sure that it's going to be cared for in a way that, that they're comfortable with. And of course they want to know what we're using. So I think that it is reasonable, if not necessary, to be forthright with them and transparent and say, this is what
Yeah.
we use. This is why we use it. So I think it's important to explain why you use something and also why you don't use other things.
Yeah.
Because that's always the follow-up. So yeah, we do communicate that with people. Some people don't care. I mean, there are definitely owners that like, just take care of my home. You know, I want it to be in good shape, and beyond that, do what you need. I need to make money.
Yeah.
Or I want to make money. But yeah, we do provide that information to people.
And is all of your tech proprietary, or are you also working with some third party?
Yeah, so we do use a couple third party. So we use a third party scraping tool. We use key data. We are, talking to other companies right now about using portions of their systems, perhaps. So we're always open to, whatever we can use if it's going to make us more efficient, save us money in the long run, save us man hours. So we're always open to those things. And yeah, I mean, I would definitely say it's wise to not just use your own. If your own data is just your own and you're not, scraping yourself. I mean, we actually have scraped ourselves as well. A lot of the companies out there, though, that only do that, they're going to be better at that. It's one thing to try to be, really good at one thing, but when you try to be really good at 10 things,
Yeah.
sometimes there's usually something that falls through the cracks. So we're trying to find the 10 things that are the best. And sometimes it's us and sometimes it's others.
So if you were to ever say, you know what, I don't want to use our proprietary RMS system anymore, I'm going to go with one of these other guys, would you only be deciding based on their features, or is there anything else that would influence your decision?
I think that if I ever went to another system, our system would be we would still have our system right in the background. And I can't imagine that if we ever did go to another system that we would do it for everything. I think features are super important, but it's also important for me, like the data in, data out. Like I want to make sure that what's coming in to those various tools, that data is the kind of data that I want influencing my decisions. So, I would want a tool that is, they're all scraped, they're all right now scraping OTAs. Key data obviously is plugged into people's systems, so you get like that true data. That said, there's a limitation there too, because then it's only the systems that are participating. So are you really truly getting a market view of something? They have requirements for thresholds and everything they have to meet, which is obviously necessary. But that's why I use them. I also use the other scrape tools too, because then I'm getting like a real high level look. Well, then you also have limitations there. Well, I would have people, flexed off of some of these channels. Are you really getting a true look? So you have to have all of these different things. And so what I want in a tool, regardless of what the tool is, it's a tool that's taking in as many data points as possible. And then is allowing me to also understand what those data points are, so I can make reasonable decisions based on what it's taking in. I don't want a tool that's just going to say, just trust me. We know what we're talking about. And I'm not saying any of them out there are doing this, but we're scraping the right platforms. You don't need to slice and dice anything on your own. I definitely want a tool, any tool that I have that I use. Everything needs to be exportable. I need to be able to export all of that data into a BI Viz tool or something like that. I don't want something that's just a beautiful UI and nothing else. Like I want to be able to get in and check and look at things from different perspectives. So those would be, when I look at anything, and whether it's a pricing tool or, any of these other, the scraping tools that are out there, I want to know what you're scraping. I want to know what you're looking at. I want to know that I can take that and then chop it up the way that I need to, if I need to.
I have one last question for you.
Okay.
Which company do you see as the biggest thought leaders in the vacation rental industry, or specifically in revenue management, and why?
Thought leaders. So just very high level. You're talking
somebody who has the greatest pulse on what is really happening on the industry, and who has, I don't know how to say this, the most reliable forecast, who understands the most what property managers need today, and somebody you would trust.
That's a really hard question. I know a lot of really smart, insightful people. And a lot of times the people I'm thinking of, they have a hold on something very specific. I talk to a lot of people, so I haven't talked to him in quite a while, but obviously Simon Lehman is one of my favorite people, not just because we share a love of red shoes, but we do.
So I didn't know that about you, but
So prior to vacation rentals, so I was a performer. My background is in the arts and is in vocal performance, and so it was always my thing. Every time I got on stage, I was always in red shoes. And the first time I met Simon Lehman or saw him was at Verma in 2017. And I was like, he's got red shoes on. So that was kind of this instant connection. Anyway, I digress. So I've always really appreciated his thoughts. He's got insight, not just, from the US, but international perspectives on things, which I think is really cool. There are folks, I have what I call our thought partners that I talk to periodically, sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly, sometimes not even regularly. We just talk whenever we can. But I have, I talk to Cameron Felton at Evolve, who's my counterpart there. And I oftentimes get a lot of really interesting insight from him. And it's also a lot of validation too, because sometimes you're like, gosh, I really feel X. And he can say, yeah, I feel that way too. Or, so it's nice to have kind of a peer-to-peer kind of relationship that way. Some of the vendors out there are really, really thoughtful people. Obviously, they're developing for our industry. So they have a sense of, or they're trying to get a sense of, what is the next thing? What are these people going to be looking for? And how can we kind of scratch that itch? And like I said, I've talked to all of the major dynamic pricing tools recently, and they're all, just, their teams are brilliant. They're thinking through things in ways that are very forward thinking, future thinking. So all of them, I would say, are brilliant minds. Wes Melton over at Macquarie Pulse. Yeah. At Pulse, he's doing really cool things. Another thought partner of mine that I love talking to, because he's one of those people that you can talk to about something and he'll come at the answer from a completely different perspective than what you were thinking. There's so many people. Amy Highnote, she's put together these DARM conferences for the last 3 now. And when she does that, she's looking at the keynotes to come speak at those and curating the conference, really. So she's always thinking about where are we going, where have we been, who are the right people. So those are the people that I kind of tend to just flock to, and I'm like, I want to know what they're thinking. I want to know who they're talking to, because generally if they're talking to people, they're talking to some really interesting people, and they're all amazing people in their own right. So that was a really long answer, and probably not like super what you were after, but there are so many smart people in our space, and I could just ramble on and on about how many amazing people there are to talk to.
I can
I
now
highly recommend
testify.
talking to them.
Yeah, I've just been interacting with everybody online basically since I joined the industry. Well, I did meet some people in person before COVID, but last week was great at the Short Stay Summit, the Book Direct show, and the RWS to finally meet everybody in person. I met a lot of these people that you mentioned, and it's really
They're brilliant,
lovely
right?
people. Yeah, so inspiring to be around. Smart, funny, fun, good at partying.
Oh yeah, our industry is very good at that. I mean, we're hospitality, right? You know, to know how to be
Yeah.
hospitable and entertaining. Yeah.
All right,
So
Sarah, this has been such a lovely chat. Thank you so much for sharing your story and viewpoints with me.
it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Where's the best place for people to connect with you if they want to talk to you more?
They can, excuse me, they can email me. I'm at S as in Sarah .Franzen, Franzen at naturalretreats.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I cannot tell you the actual handle, but just look me up, Sarah Franzen on LinkedIn. Happy to connect there. Yeah, so reach out. I'm always happy to have more contacts in the industry.
Great. And if you, listener or watcher, enjoyed this episode, as always, please give it a like, share it with a friend or colleague, and subscribe to the channel. And thank you, Sarah. Have a great day.
Thank you.